Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this workshop. This is another Food Growers Initiative co-learning. Today, we are covering the basics of how to film using your cell phone. This will be an interactive session with space for questions and discussion. I hope this inspires all growers to film their space and tell their story. The idea is to send in content to the Food Growers media team, who will help with editing and producing it and get it on TV. Food Growers Initiative is a collective of anybody who wants to grow food with a vision to create a food forest out of Cape Town to enable food freedom. It originated during the pandemic to connect entire Cape Town and surrounds. The Zoom today has been hosted by Keren Ben-Zeev and curated and facilitated by myself. The first session on how to film with your cell phone has been presented by Thabo, Bopape. And thank you everybody for your participation. Without any further ado, I would like to introduce Thabo. Thabo is an actor, filmmaker, and film and television trainer with 40 years film and television broadcasting experience. He began working in film and television when he was 14 years old, and now is one of two directors at Africa Kunika, based in Cape Town. He's passionate about sharing knowledge and skills so that others can explore their creativity and discover latent artistic talents. Thank you, Thabo, and it's over to you.
Hi there, good morning, everyone. My name is Thabo Bopape, and thank you for joining us. We decided to brave it this morning. We were going to do this from indoors, but since we've had so much rain, and what we do here is all about working outdoors as best and as much as we can, doing gardening. But today, basically, what I'll be showing you is the fundamentals of filmmaking. And I feel that, technology has become so easy these days that everyone and anyone can do it. But to really do it to a good standard or to a good quality and a high level, it's important to know the basics of why things look a particular way, and why maybe sometimes you need to invest a little bit more time and effort in what you do to make it look of a better quality and of a higher standard. So I've prepared a presentation, which I will be sharing with you, and I will be on and off screen. Let me just see here. I've got my screen, my other screen. Okay, there we've got other people who are with us. For those of you who've just joined us now, and we've got another screen here for them to see you too, and also to be able to see the presentation. So that other screen was just cutting out. But as I was saying, I've got a presentation that I've prepared to share with you, and ideally, the way I do this course or this workshop is over a full day. And I've had to condense this into a couple of hours. So I think before I go into the presentation, I would like to maybe hear from a few people what it is that you would like to get from this, or what maybe you're already doing, so that I can be able to just cut to the chase for who's here instead of going into the presentation that I've prepared just because I didn't know who was coming. Like if I understand who's here and why you're here, or what you kind of expect, just from a few people, 2-3 people, it'll help me to share the presentation in a manner that hopefully we'll get the most out of it, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I'd like to hear from a few people. Yeah, there's one person that I recognize there. Marcus, I'll pick on you. You go first.
Hi, good morning. Really, honestly, I already have my own little small camera, and I've had it for quite some time now, for I think at least a year now, because it was a birthday gift. And so I just thought it would be nice to learn on how to take quality photos, because also I have a little small business that I have where I would sell little products. And it's good to, you know, have quality photos to advertise to people, because if your product is eye-catching, then you can get products sold. So that's my reason. Just perfecting photos, making it look really, really high quality.
Awesome. Great. And I see Sean says basic filming techniques. Great. That's fabulous. Maybe one or two more people. All right. So let's see. I'll just look in the chat here. Basic filming techniques, what to focus on when filming. Okay, cool. All right, fantastic. So in terms of age, I'd like to find out, is there anyone in this meeting that's under 14 years old? No? No? No. Okay, cool. That gives me a sense of, oh, is anyone over 50? No one over 50. Great. So the way I prepared my presentation, I think, is pretty much on point for those of you who have shared your thoughts, your expectations, because what I did is I prepared a presentation that starts with photography. And I'll just go into that. I'll be going in and out of the presentation. So sometimes you'll see me, sometimes you'll see what's on screen. And the reason I kind of asked people's ages is because I'll be flying through this pretty fast. And if I'm going too fast, please just interject. Yeah, and then I'll slow down. If there's anything that you don't understand, put it in the chat or raise your hand and Erica will let me know. Cool. So my name is Thabo. My surname is pronounced Bopape. As Erica did say, I'm one of two directors in a company called Africa Kuinuka. We're based here in Cape Town. And Africa Kuinuka basically means, it's a Swahili word, Kuinuka, which means rising or rise up. So this is Africa Rise Up, Africa Rising. It's a statement, it's a command, and it in a way kind of encapsulates our spirit to share information so that we can all be empowered and capacitated to pursue our dreams, our interests, build our communities, you know, empower ourselves and others. So today we're going to start with photography. We'll have a short assignment, photographic assignment. So I hope everyone has brought a cell phone or has a cell phone. If you don't have a cell phone, just do say, and then we'll work out a way for you to also participate. If you're at home, yeah, it'll be great if you can also do some of these assignments. And you guys, hopefully you brought your cell phones too.
I've got 2 cell phones.
Okay, cool. Kelly has some extra gadgets that she can lend the people here. And then we'll do a little bit of feedback on the pictures of photographs that you take. The times might not be exact. We will adjust accordingly. And if we feel that certain things have taken a little bit longer, we can just like, you know, create this together. And then we'll come back after the exercise. We'll have the feedback, and then we'll at 10:15 we'll start filming with a cell phone, and then we'll have a practical filming assignment. And I just thought that there were going to be more people in the meeting. It doesn't have to be 2 people doing this exercise. It can be 1 person each, but it just helps if you have something or someone to film. We can work it out however we work it out, because we're just here to really have fun with the fundamentals, the basics, and then build from that. Hopefully we'll have more sessions later in the weeks to come. But at 11:30, we'll do the filming feedback. So you basically share what you have filmed, and we'll take 25 minutes to do that, because obviously it's video as opposed to photographs. and then we'll close and get, some of your views. And as I go along, if you have a question, like I said, you can raise your hand. If I finish without anyone asking questions, I'll still stop and ask, are there any questions? Like right now, are there any questions? No. Okay, cool. So I'll go right into it. Our objectives, as Erica shared, I'm just going to minimize this. Let's see. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So that you also can see that. Yeah. So our objectives is just to share the fundamentals of photography and videography so that we can get the most out of our cell phones and our devices. And hopefully, those of you who are interested, we will be developing a pool of people who can take photographs and make videos to help promote the different activities that people are doing. No, I'm good, thank you. That people are doing, or organizations and other projects are doing within the city of Cape Town or within our communities and our area. And we don't have to limit it to this. We can always share, make the circle bigger. And also promote CTT Food Growers Initiative and this community that we are also building. And also my objective is to encourage the use of affordable and easily accessible tools to generate good quality content, photographs and video, so that we can not only promote ourselves, but also discover our talents. I guess you're here because you are interested in either photography or you are interested in growing your business and you see this as something that you have access to. I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment. So technology is such that, some of you might be offended by the statement, but the truth is not all cell phones are created equal. I've got this one, which is an old Samsung. It's from the early days of smartphones. And then I replaced it with this one, which is a cheapie from Pep, but it does take photographs, it does shoot video. This, I think in 2012, 2013, I was shooting videos and taking photographs with it. And you'll see the photographs from this phone are not as great as maybe the photographs from this. This is an old iPhone 6, which still takes good video, good quality pictures. And this is what I use. It's a Sony. You can see my screen is cracked. It's been taped with all sorts of stuff. I don't see so well when I do selfies because it's cracked on the front here. But the back camera still takes beautiful pictures, amazing images, and also excellent video. It's got a really great lens. So the most important thing about your device or about photography and whatever you're doing is know your device and know its limitations. And don't really be put off by the fact that somebody else has a better device. The fact that you can take photographs, the fact that you can record video is already a good thing. So you are on a positive footing to start with whatever you have and have access to. All right, moving right along. So let's see. So what is photography? Photography is using a camera, but today we'll say using a device to take photographs or record images. In the olden days, we used to use film. I'm not going to bore you with the stories of like in my day, but I'm 53 years old. So yeah, I've gone through different incarnations of photography. When we used to take photographs on film, and to see your photograph took days. And most people who are into photography are really into it because they're passionate about it. You're not, yeah, you might get into it accidentally. Like maybe a friend asked you to come and check this out. But if you get into it, you'll get into it because you're passionate about it. And it has become more advanced over the years and has changed the way we live. And one of the devices that has changed the way we live is a cell phone. Most people do just about everything on their cell phones these days. You can do your banking, you can check your emails, you can record video, and you can take photographs. So something that we used to wait to do to see and would take a lot of time can be easily done, and anyone and everyone can do it. But how well you do it depends on what you know. It's 9:25, so I'm going to keep an eye on time, and I'll probably start flying through this as I see myself maybe lagging behind. But it's important to understand what photography is. And photography, the word photography comes from two words: photo, which is light, and graphy, which is writing. So it's writing or drawing with light, making images with light. In the past, we used to use film. Today, we use these digital devices. So light is important. I deliberately wanted to set this up outdoors because we're going to be talking more about the basics, and the basic source of light is the sun, is natural light. So without light, the images wouldn't register. You can see the darkest areas are the areas where there isn't light. The brightest areas are the areas where there is light. How you use light is important, and lighting is critical to creating good images. I deliberately chose these images as well because as we follow through, I'll be talking about portrait and landscape. Some call it vertical and horizontal, but for the purposes of what we're doing here today, we're talking about portrait, and these images are portraits. And this, the composition, the way the image is taken is landscape. But in talking about light, even this image here, without the light coming in through the window, hitting the bowl on the chair, the image would be very different. As you can see, the parts where there isn't light, like the walls, where there isn't any light, there's very little to see. So light allows you to, as some people, the expression goes, shed light on the subject. So I chose to also start bringing in more of the outdoors or vegetation and, vegetables, because we're talking about ultimately documenting gardening and gardeners, people and what they do and their spaces. But what's interesting about this image here is that even though the light is gentle and soft, I mean, most of these images that you see have been edited and treated, but that's a conversation for another day. Today, we're talking about the basics, but I chose this image here so that you can look and see. If you can see my cursor, and if you look at the bottom of the pumpkin here, you can see the shadow. Shadow is always good giveaway of where your light is coming from, where the light is. Yeah. So the lighting here, if you look at the shadow, it's coming from the opposite side. It's coming from away from the pumpkin, but they must have used the flash, because if you look at the nub here, or the stem of the pumpkin, you can see it's pretty bright. That could have been also brightened up in editing. So maybe in that sense, it's not a good example, but it's important to start looking at images and shadow, and where you place your light source. And your light source in this instance, as we said, is the sun. So it's free and it's pretty accessible. Today is a very beautiful day, in that right now where I am, it's overcast. So the lighting is pretty flat. or right now you see that brightness there, because maybe I'm in the picture. No, not necessarily. But because there are gaps in this beautiful canopy behind me. But lighting is important. What I wanted to do was to place myself that side so that you could see the mountain in the background, but the background was far brighter than this, and I wasn't visible. And that's also why I have a light here, you know, so that you can see me better. Yeah. All right. So lighting is very important. But I was saying that today is a very beautiful day, because when you have this kind of outdoor light, it allows you to have nice, even lighting. Also, it depends on what sort of effect that you want to achieve. If you want something that's more contrasty, it's just that when you have a nice, bright, sunny day, yes, you will have depth, you will have contrast, but there are certain times of day that are not really good for photography and for filming, because the purpose and the objective of all this is to shed light on your subject or to make your subject visible. So natural lighting looks great in almost every instance except high noon. High noon, we'll get to it a little bit later. You will see that. So in terms of positioning yourself, the easiest way to say it, or in terms of the basics, you know, I always say learn the basics before you can break the rules. If you know the basics and understand why you do things a certain way, then when you start breaking the rules, you will know what you're trying to achieve with breaking the rules. Either way, yeah. So the best way when you take photographs to make sure that what you're photographing, which is what we call the subject, what you're photographing is well lit, is to make sure that the sun is behind you. Yeah. If it's a day that's overcast like this, your images might not look so appealing, depending on the kind of camera that you have or the kind of phone that you have and the kind of lens that it has. The older the phone, the lower the pixels, and the lower the pixels, probably less detail you'll get. And the less detail you'll get, the more blurry it looks, the more blurry because the colors are blended. You've got less detail in the image. But don't let that deter you and, you know, dissuade you, discourage you from continuing to take pictures. Because as long as you learn the basics, the universe is a way of just making things happen. You know, if you put your heart and your passion into what you do, you'll be amazed by what starts coming your way. So never have the sun or light source behind the landscape that you're photographing or the person that you're taking the picture of. So you'll be left with a silhouette. A silhouette is like what kind of happens if I do this. Well, you can almost see me, but if the light was all very bright, you wouldn't be able to see anything. You would just see a dark shadow. I think I've got about 12 minutes. Let's see how far 12 minutes will get us in my talking. And you can always ask questions and we can adjust time accordingly as well. So you'll be left with a dark shadow. And if you look, once again, I've put this image here because I wanted to talk about shadow and see where the sun and the light is coming from. But like I said, this is not a great example. So moving forward, when you take photographs, I mentioned that this is a portrait and that is landscape. Landscape being images that are taken with the phone kind of lengthwise, which is the horizontal, and portrait is with the phone kind of the way you naturally would kind of like expect to hold a phone. And I say, think about how you hold your phone or how you take your photograph based on what you intend to do or use that photograph for. If you're taking photographs of people and you want to use them for, I don't know, as maybe for a CV, or maybe you want to use it for something that is like a biography of a person, like you want to tell a little bit about the person, who they are, what they do, where they come from, that kind of thing. You can hold your phone in portrait, horizontally. No, is that vertically? Vertically upright, like you would hold it if you were to be speaking on it. And you can see with these examples that I've kind of hacked up from this picture here. I took this picture and cropped it in such a way that on one side, on the left, is the portrait. On the right-hand side is the horizontal or landscape. Landscape is the preferred way to take photographs because you see more. And generally with technology today, you can edit pictures. So if you have more, you can do more with that image. You can play around with it. So I recommend, honestly, that if you are to take photographs, you start changing this habit of just taking photographs in this vertical way that often people, use their cell phone, because it's the natural way to hold your cell phone. When you talk, you hold it this way. But for the purposes of the basics and the fundamentals of going forward and taking better pictures and better quality images and video, start using it landscape. Again, just examples and samples, reminders of the left and the right, the left being portrait and the right being landscape. The left is a portrait. You can see how the person, the image of this individual, is better up close. It's more intimate. When you start talking about whoever this person is and saying a little bit about them, you feel kind of connected to them. But if you're doing a photograph of a garden or a space, you want to tell a little bit more than just about the bowl itself. You're doing something more about the space, then you would use landscape. Like I said, a great photograph is really an expression of what someone is putting or trying to say about what they see and what they're capturing. So what really makes a great photograph is thinking about what you feel and really investing your self-expression, because photography is an art form. It's creativity. And that's why we're doing this, so that you can start discovering your creativity and thinking about what you're capturing and how you're capturing it. I won't be going into details of editing today at all. But these images were taken many years ago, I think back in 1976. These are photographs of spaces that have people in them, but the photographs say a whole lot more than just taking a picture of a wall or a picture of 3 people or 2 people crossing the street. So consider what you are photographing, what's in that frame. When we get into editing, you will learn a little bit more about how you can actually take an image that's less appealing and start doing certain things to it, treating it in such a way that maybe you focus your attention or you focus the eye to certain things, doing other things. So here is a photograph that I just took from our WhatsApp group. I think actually I got this from the Facebook page. So this was taken in a garden. It was taken at high noon. And how I know it was taken at high noon is because if you look at the people's eyes, and if you look at the ones particularly wearing hats, you can hardly see their eyes. There's a person here with the bandana over their face. They have their face kind of turned up which is why you can see their eyes. But if you look at this woman here, you can hardly see her eyes. This woman here, you can hardly see her eyes. The woman here in the foreground with the hat on, you can hardly see your eyes. That's because the sun is directly above. That's high noon. And that's why high noon is not necessarily the best time to take pictures. And I think it's through trial and error and doing what we do that we learn from our mistakes. You know, when we are grown up, or as we grow up, we think that making mistakes says something negative about us. It doesn't. But if we are confident and passionate about what we do and what we're trying to do, we will learn from those mistakes. As children, when we grow up, we fall, we burn ourselves, we hurt ourselves, we do all sorts of things. We make mistakes and we learn from our mistakes. And when we learn from our mistakes, we grow to become better individuals and do whatever it is that we were trying. We do it better. Whether it's athletics, it's sports, it's photography, it's video, don't be afraid to make mistakes, you know. And there's a community of people who can also guide you, that you can ask questions to and from. If you're not part of the media task team, maybe after this, Erica can share the details with us of where and how you can join. Maybe share your details with Erica now. And be part of the media task team. And then you can ask people questions, or you can be part of that, at least, community and that WhatsApp group, and ask questions. So these two photographs, these two images on screen, one was taken on, I can just tell, on a very flat, overcast day, which is why everything is just lit very flat. There's very little contrast. There might have been a little bit of sun peeking through, which is why you can see a little bit of detail on the tree trunk there in the background. That's the photograph on the left. If you look at the photograph on the right, there's dappled light, but it's also a very good image. As much as there is darkness here in the foreground, here in the foreground there's darkness, the background is dark, but you can see the woman's face and you can see what her hands are doing. So that kind of draws your focus and your attention to what she's doing. So sometimes playing with light and dark, shade, and where your bright spots are, it's a good thing to start discovering what you can do and the kind of images that you can create with your device. But also these are examples of too much light or too much contrast. You can see here the foreground is dark and the background is very bright. So what I would have done here is I would have moved a little bit to the left. So this, the photograph on the left, that is, I would have moved around more to the left to the brighter side of the space where the sun is coming from, so that most of what I'm photographing is just dark, and the camera would have exposed for the dark space without too much brightness in the background, making the photograph then at least what you want to see or trying to show, making the plants more visible. Here, the image on the right is a plant that has just too much light. Most cameras, you should be able to tap on different parts of your screen, and that will help the camera just automatically adjust for the part or the object that you are that you're looking to photograph. It will adjust the exposure, so it will either close you know, what we call the aperture. It will either close the aperture or open the aperture for, you know, according to whatever it is that you are photographing. So I think we are close to having you guys do an exercise. I think I've done pretty well. It's 9:44, and considering that we started late, I intended for us to start doing the photographic exercise at 9:45, but I think I'd like to open for questions if anyone has any questions before I continue and before I get into the exercise. So we spoke about light, mainly exposure, because photography is about writing with light. I will get into different kinds of shots as I tell you about the exercise that we're going to do. Any questions? Going once. Any questions? Going twice. Am I going too fast?
It's perfect, Thabo. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So let's move on. Yeah. And when we come back, if you've made mistakes, there's no such thing as a mistake, really, because it's just an opportunity to learn from. So that's a good thing. So regardless of what your pictures look like, we will all learn something from it. So yes, Kelly's got a question.
So like sometimes I like it to take photographs, and you know, I often find that maybe the best I mean, sometimes yeah, that's one I see. If the sun is like in front of you, is it rather better to change angle?
So you can look at your camera, look at your phone, and look at your image, and depending on what I mean, it will tell you what the image looks like.
Yeah.
If the image really looks like this, if the image looks like this, yeah, it depends on what you're trying to achieve. Yeah. So you would be the photographer, and the sun is in front of you, which is behind me.
Yeah.
It's not what I was suggesting and recommending that you have the sun behind the photographer so that then it's on the subject. Yeah. So if this is what you're looking to achieve, though, then that's okay. But if this is not what you're looking to achieve, at least you know the basics of, okay, let's move this person so you can actually move the subject. Don't think that people have to, you know, so I think that's one of the things about having, you know, all this technology accessible in our hands. We can just, everyone can just like snap. So what I'm going to share with you in terms of the basics is sometimes you have to think about what you're doing, what you're looking to capture, and how you're going to use it. And then think, okay, does it look good? Does it really suit my purpose? Does it suit the intention of what I want to achieve? If it doesn't, then move the person around, you know, ask them to move and look for what really looks best. And if what you had before looks better than anything else that you have at that point, then you go back to that, you know? So I think it's all about thinking about purpose, what it is that you're trying to do and looking to achieve. Yeah. Anything else? Any other question?
When it comes to shadows, what I find often is when you're taking a picture.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not sure if you could hear.
Thabo,
Yes.
can you please repeat the question because we can't hear it?
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah. Okay. Carry. Okay. Cool. I will.
So basically, like often when I'm taking a picture with planters, how much shadow is in the way, and it's almost impossible to to get rid of my shadow, and so you find yourself going around and round and round and round. I just want to overcome that. Is it just the wrong time of day? Stupid question, but when you're taking cactuses to climb up the fence, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wrong time of day.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So Kelly was asking, you know, sometimes how to remove her shadow. I'll go back to the first question, but right now what she was asking is, you know, sometimes you want to take a picture and your shadow is in the way, and you know, how do you remove your shadow from the image? it's also about moving around, but sometimes you can't. I mean, if you're taking a photograph of a cactus and it's on the other side of the fence and you can't get over the fence, you know, how do you take that photograph? One of the ways that I've done it is try to hide myself in such a way that when I hold the camera, like in front of my shadow or within my shadow starts becoming part of the picture in such a way that it either disappears or it works. But other times you really need to just avoid faking it. Really make it obvious that you're in the photograph so that you become part of the photograph, you know, and you are also represented in the photograph. So it's also about intention and working with what you have, what's available at that point in time. So the first question that Kelly asked was about taking a photograph where the sun is in front of you. I forget exactly how you asked the question, but it was about taking a photograph when the sun is in front of you, the photographer. So the sun is behind the subject or the person that is being photographed, which then creates that silhouetted effect, or it just makes the person less visible. The most important thing, if you're photographing people, if you're photographing your subject, is to make sure that it's well visible. And with people, we connect with the eyes. And if you're taking a photograph of a person or you are recording video of people and you can't see their eyes, you're losing a lot of important human connection, and also you're losing what you could potentially achieve with that image. As we say, a picture speaks 1,000 words. So I want to go back to my presentation if there aren't any further questions. I don't see any questions in the chat, so that we can take a break. I need to kind of like pause and, you know, rest my vocal cords, even if it's just for 10 minutes. Right, so I was talking about high noon and the time of day. This is a photograph of that same group of people that was taken elsewhere outside of the garden, obviously. I don't know exactly where. So that's this group of people, I think. Taken probably same day, very much high noon. You can see the shadow of the woman in the foreground there holding up her cell phone, where it's falling almost directly above. I mean, it's not exactly high noon. If you look at the shadow of the person on the right, in the green shirt, you can see where his shadow is falling. So, I mean, when we say high noon, it's actually a time window, depending on the time of the year, the season. It's between 11 and 2 or 11 and 3. So I just finished the documentary where I was deliberately filming any time between 6 a.m. and 10:30 or 11 latest. And then I would stop and I would start filming. If I really pushed it, I would start filming at 2:30, but the best time was really to start filming at 3:30 until about 6 o'clock. And that's called the golden hour, where the sun is about to set, or late afternoon. Your images look beautiful and golden. And early morning, you also have very nice, beautiful light. And for gardeners, generally we try not to garden at high noon. You know, that's the hottest time of day. So we will wait for a little bit later in the afternoon when it's cooler, or earlier in the day, in the morning. So when you start thinking about photography and generating content and images for whatever you do, and you're using natural light, start thinking about the time of day that you will be taking those photographs. Experiment with I think someone's microphone is open there. Start experimenting with different times of day to see what your images look like. The other thing is, just because of the way technology is, when you have very light skin and very dark skin, it becomes very difficult to take photographs in the sun. As you can see here, the woman with the Canada t-shirt on the left-hand side, I love Canada, is quite washed out. And the person on the extreme right is a lot more visible. But the woman center, right at the back with the white hat and the dreadlocks, because of that hat casting a shadow on her face, or the woman in the very front with the hat casting a shadow on her face, you can't see her. So the harshest time of day to take any photograph is that period of noon. You lose a lot of detail, things get washed out, everything gets too bright and that sort of thing. So we have an assignment.
Thabo?
Yes.
There is one question. Fawaz would like to ask a question.
Sorry, you're breaking up, but yes.
Fawaz, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay.
Hi there, good morning, Fawaz.
Good morning, Thabo. Good morning, everyone. Just one question, Rico. I just wanted to know, what do a person do, especially in the garden, when you get amazing photo shoot to take, especially when you zoom in and this is your only option, we'll get this opportunity to be, I'm just making an example, like a bird or something that's in your garden. Unfortunately, you won't be able to go close to that animal, otherwise it will fly away. But in this new phones that you get, you can zoom in, but for some reason tells you on the screen you have to keep your hand as steady as possible, otherwise it will blur because now you're going into detail. What do you do in a situation like that?
That's a very good question. You stand like a statue. Hold on.
Yeah.
You're kind of jumping ahead here. So one of the things that I didn't ask is how you hold your camera. Yeah. Most people tend to hold the phone like this. That's not the way to do it. You always use two hands on your device. When you're shooting video, you use two hands. When you are taking photographs, you use two hands to be as still as possible. That's why sometimes photographs are called stills as opposed to video. And the other thing is this device. It's called a tripod. But if you don't have one, you use your body like a tripod. So your elbows, you tuck them in, yeah, so that you're not loose, yeah. So you tuck your elbows in and you like really tight. You start like squeezing your ribs, yeah, and you plant your feet. You bend your knees. You don't stand tight and upright. You bend your knees so that your knees are loose and you start becoming a bit of a tripod. Oh, I think we're gonna lose connectivity. I just heard my phone go ding. So yeah, I've got my charger. I'll have to connect here whilst you guys do the exercise. I think we've got a little bit of time and grace. So yeah, the most important thing, you use yourself as a tripod. You plant yourself. You hold your phone with both hands. Now you will have to experiment and find what works for you. Sometimes it might be holding it like this with your fingers on top and bottom. Sometimes it might be holding it like this. I find when I shoot video, my fingers get tired and I start shivering. So when I hold it like this, I can also swivel and pan nicely, etc. But now with zooming in, now bear in mind that this thing, a zoom is really a lens has glass at the back and the front and the middle. And when you have a zoom lens, is when pieces of glass are moving back and forth. This is a digital zoom. There are no moving parts. It's all electronic. So it depends on the electronics in the phone. Like I said, not all phones are created equal. But if you have one of these more expensive phones with like 4 lenses and you can shoot things like 8K video, you can really shoot a whole movie with it, depending on what other extras and gadgetry you add to it. But coming back to your bird and your zooming in question, when you zoom in, you are magnifying everything. You are magnifying not only the size of the subject or that which you are trying to photograph, you are also magnifying or amplifying, making it louder or more visible. Every little shake, every little movement, every tiny movement that you normally wouldn't see if you're taking a wide shot suddenly is multiplied because you've zoomed in 20 times, it's multiplied 20 times, you know? So if you can't get any closer, you get the best shot that you can. And if you can't get the shot that you want, that's a sign of the limitations of your device. Like I said, get to know your device. Not every device is created equal. And some devices won't be able to do certain things. But if you're passionate about what you do, you will find different ways to either use the one that you have or for the universe to bring you the one that you deserve, well, maybe need, whichever way it works. Yeah. Any other questions?
No, that's it. Thanks, Thabo.
Does that suffice for us? Does that help? Okay, so I'm running behind a little bit, but that's all good. I don't mind, as long as we get to cover answer people's questions. These are very beautiful images. As much as, yes, they've been edited, they've been treated. So I'm hoping that this will entice you to want to do another workshop to improve on the images that you take, and start discovering other ways that are affordable and available that you can use that are either built into your cameras. Most of you probably try and use these called filters, but there are other things that you can do, playing with the contrast and the brightness, or even in your camera, start tapping on the different parts of the screen and you will see it get brighter or darker. And then you'll start discovering, the more you play with your camera, the more you will discover what it can do or cannot do. Yeah. If your background is too bright, if you tap on that background, you'll see your phone adjust and make it a little bit darker to close. So it actually exposes for the background. But when it exposes for the background, you'll see the foreground also lose detail. So sometimes you have to find a middle ground on your screen and tap on a different part of the screen that's halfway in between the light and the dark that you're looking for, and hopefully you'll get the middle ground and get a better exposure. Yeah. So with the assignment that I want you to do, the time is now 10:03, and hopefully by the time I finish, it will be 10:05, and then we'll take I think 10 minutes, if that's okay. For those of you who need to go to the loo, 5 minutes to the loo and 5 minutes to take 2 pictures. I need 1 photograph that is a wide shot. It must be landscape. It is a wide shot. It can be with people. It can be with plants. It can be indoors. It can be outdoors. We're going to look at how you use light, and depending on what camera you have done, and if you are sharing your picture, we can see what you've done or not done. I think it's going to be difficult for you guys to share your images, but we'll work it out. So we can see what you've done, and depending on what you've done, if you have any questions, I can share with you maybe different ways to do that. So one is a wide shot. Yeah, which has more background. Even if it's a plant in the foreground, you can see the strawberry here, you can see the lettuce, you can see the whatchamacallit, the beetroot there, but you can also see the background with the people on the left-hand side. You can see them, you can see their faces, but you can also see the background. Yeah, so that's your wide shot. And then the other is a close-up, something that is up close, whether it is a bug or it is the vegetables, or anything. It could be a piece of jewelry, it could be a pendant, whatever catches your eye when you look around. Yeah. All right. So instead of 15 minutes, we've got 10 minutes. It is 10:05. So you've got 10 minutes, and then we'll come back at 10:15. I'm going to charge my phone. We're going to take a break, and I will see you soon, unless there's any questions. Hey, welcome back, everyone. Is anyone interested in sharing their image? Ah, there we go. Now that's a beautiful image. Who's this? Is this Bradley? Yeah, Bradley. So Bradley, what I see here is you could have tapped either in the foreground on your phone. Did you try tapping on different parts of your screen first of all, or did you just move around and then just take the picture when you've found the best shot?
Yes, that's correct. I just took it from one view.
Okay, all right. So let's start with just now. What's really great about this picture, first of all, you've got depth. You've got on the right-hand side, you've got the panels that give you length that starts pretty close, and then they go to the back there where the rooster is. And on the left, you've got this fence, which gives you some lines that cut this way. So you've got good instinct. If this is just what you did, you walked around, you moved around, positioned yourself, and thought this is a good shot, and you took this shot. And you've got your subject there, which is the chickens. And that's really, and I love the swing in the in the foreground, because really it captures the essence of the space and the method that you use, that these are not factory chickens. That's a really beautiful photograph. So if you tapped, or next time, try tapping on different parts of your screen. Like if this was the photograph, tap on the brightest part, and you'll see it kind of like get a little bit darker, so that detail there is not lost. So in your photograph, I would have maybe tapped a little bit on the foreground where there's a bit of detail lost. It would have closed up a little bit, and the chickens in the background would have also been darker and a bit more visible, as opposed to less, or as opposed to being washed out. If you had maybe tapped on the right, possibly, alternatively, instead of the foreground, if you had tapped on the right, where there's that corrugated iron running lengthwise, there's some bright spots there where there's light coming in from outside. If you tapped on that, it would have made it darker a little bit, so that then you have that which really makes a good photograph, which is the contrast between light and dark, because you're playing with light. When it's flat lighting like this, yes, you will have an image, but it doesn't necessarily make the best image. But that's a really beautiful picture that you took there, and it allows us to at least talk about something that's practical, that's right here. Okay, there's Fawaz. Okay, so I can see Fawaz, where you are, it's pretty overcast, it's flat, but that is also a beautiful image. But the lighting is what's off. It's not a bad image, in that if you know how to edit images, you can really improve on this. What really makes this a great image is that we have this character or the subject, which is the mushroom in the foreground, and you can see in the middle there are some lines that are clear definitions. You can see the lines of the mushroom. That's in focus. And then the background is out of focus. That's called depth of field. When you start getting into photographs, and especially people like Marcus, if you want to photograph your products, depending on what it is that you are selling or promoting, you will want to have the focus on the subject in the foreground, but then use the background and the space as, oh, sorry, I can't stop the sharing. Can you possibly stop sharing that? Yeah. So you will start using the subject, whatever the subject is, the mushroom, and the space as a canvas, because I was saying that, photography, capturing images and creating content is a creative endeavor, it's a creative exercise. And also it's an expression of your creativity. So the space is really the canvas. If I'm out of the picture, it's a blank canvas. And then where you position your subject and how you position your subject starts changing and impacting on that canvas. Yeah. So what makes that a beautiful image is that you have those lines in the foreground. So your subject, you can see the detail in the subject. And if you use editing, you can then make the colors in the background, and you can also play with the sharpness. Don't over sharpen your images if you play with this, but the only way to learn is to just play, and if you make mistakes, those are not mistakes, they're just opportunities to really learn. So that's great, guys. I'm gonna get into the next. Annalisa is sharing, so we'll take one last one, which is this one of Annalisa, and then we'll get into filming video. That's very nice. So as a trick, and well, not a trick, as a technique, if you look at your image in the foreground at the bottom there is something that looks light and bright. I think that is maybe, well, I don't know, it looks like fabric or something. So two things about this image. So let's stop sharing, and I'll tell you a little bit more. So stop sharing your image there. Erica, can you help with the stop share? Yeah, so two things about your image. And when we get into video, it will be very important. When you are taking a photograph of something, if that's your garden and you want to take a photograph of your garden, you're not going to get the best image, or you're not going to get the best out of it unless you come to the level of whatever it is that you want to photograph. So if you want to photograph, let's say, this plant, you can photograph it like this, or you can photograph it, like that. When you start coming to its level, it's just that the light is in the background. So for the purposes of our exercise, let me also show the difference in what things look like when I start moving around. You can see the same plant starts looking differently depending on where the light is hitting it from and how much. Sorry guys, it's just that I can't see my screen well, but you can see the difference, what's in the background there, how much is light, how much is dark. So the important thing is, what I'm saying is, if you're going to photograph something, it's better to actually come down to the level of your subject, you know, you'll get better results. So with that photograph there, Annelisa, what I recommend in future is, you know, you see photographers bend down. So it's important to also bend down, come down, so that you take advantage of the height and the level, so that you are at the right level with your subject, as opposed to just taking a picture from what we call comfortable height. That's why you see photographers always moving and changing position, because they're trying to capture as best as possible the subject. So that's the one thing. And then I was saying that at the bottom of the screen there with that photograph, you could see something that looked like white fabric. So I would have tilted up a little bit to cut out that white fabric, so that at the top there was something else that looked like beetroot. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but there were other plants. In the foreground, it was spinach. And in the background, there were other plants that you could see the bottom of. You could see the bottom of it, but you couldn't see the top of it. So if you had tilted your camera a little bit where you cut out the bottom, you would have seen the top of those other plants, and then it will make it a better image. Because then also with photography and video, you want the eye to be able to move around. You want to be able to use light and the images or the subject, whatever it is that you have in the picture, to make the eye move around. What was interesting about that image from Bradley, where Bradley had that corrugated iron on one side, and there was the fence on this side, and the chickens in the background, and something in the foreground could have been what the chickens eat, but that was a little bit washed out. That is what we call a dynamic image, because it makes your eye move around. You start seeing different things that just tell you more about about more than just about the chickens. And that's why we say a picture speaks 1,000 words. Because with that picture, I could see the method of chicken rearing that you're using. They're definitely, you know, walking around, scratching about. They have a nice little swing where they sleep, so they exercise their wings. Those are good, healthy, looked after chickens. You know, it says a whole lot more than just 2 chickens. So I hope that suffices for me to move on. Okay, let's see. Well, see. Okay, Marcus has shared his pics. You can download. Let's just look at one quickly.
Thabo, I've downloaded them as well for later.
Okay, yeah. If we have time, we'll look at those, because I really want to get into the video, because I think that's why most of us are here, or we are looking to graduate from just taking pictures. So whilst this is opening, for video, like I said, you know, there are 2 ways to hold your phone, which are acceptable, or to hold your device, which are acceptable when doing photography, because you can take the type of photograph, which is a portrait, or one that is of landscape. But when doing video, only one way to hold a phone applies, or only one way to hold a device is the correct way. And that is landscape. There's only one way when shooting video, there's only one way to hold your phone, and that is holding your phone horizontally, which is landscape. Because television sets, computer monitors, and even primarily YouTube, which is one of the platforms that most people use, or Vimeo. They don't display the way we normally hold phones when we talk. They display lengthwise, which is horizontally. So it might make natural sense to film in portrait with a device which has a portrait screen orientation, but it does not really look well or translate well on screen. Computer monitors and television sets, like I said, display a particular way. People cringe when they see videos filmed this way. And if we're looking to have content that will be broadcast, hopefully, on CTV, or alternatively, video content that will be on YouTube, like even just this Zoom meeting, then the only way to do it is using the landscape orientation. So often you hear people say light, camera, action. We covered the basics of photography, which is lighting and the device. A little bit about the different kinds of shots to use, but actually there's a lot more than just lights and camera or action. There is also sound. And so it's light, sound, camera, action. The 4 elements of good video. The light is to help us get the image, but now you have a moving image that also has to record sound because your people are talking or you're doing interviews, or there is a narration where perhaps you can have a whole series of stills or photographs and have a voice that is recorded separately that then tells the story using those photographs or stills or slideshow, as we call it sometimes. So lighting is needed for actors' faces or the people who you're interviewing and the people that you're recording. As I said before, if you can't see people's eyes, then you lose a whole lot of that human connectedness. Humans are fine-tuned to read information from the faces of other humans. Therefore, in a story with actors or with people that you are interviewing, in any video with people, much of it also comes from being able to see those people's faces and their expressions. If you have something like this, where the people are backlit, this is what you end up with, which is a silhouette. So in other words, make sure that your people are well lit. Like I was saying, make sure that the light is behind you, the camera person or the photographer. In this case, now that we're talking about video, it's the videographer or the person handling the device. Make sure that the light is behind you. But if you're indoors, there are many things that you can do to play around with light. We spoke about this image, but the reason I have this image here now is because of high noon also not being a good time to do interviews or to do any filming, particularly if you're going to be interviewing people of different skin tones and you're putting them next to each other. Just one moment. Okay, there. So in terms of lighting and how you handle the camera when you're doing video, it's very different from when you're taking a photograph, which is a still, which also requires you to be still. But remember what I was saying about the when the image, when you zoom in, and maybe you didn't get that part because Fawaz got cut off, but some of you might have been there. When you zoom in, every movement and every action is amplified. And with these devices being digital as they are, sorry, just when I come out of that. Sorry, I thought you could see my shared slide. I'm going through the slideshow. Technology is not on our side today. It's a good thing that at least we know the basics. So these are the images that I was showing. I don't know if you did see these. I did talk about the facial expressions, but okay, there we go. So these are the images. If you have the light behind the subject, you don't see the people's eyes. So it's important to be able to see the eyes. This is the image that I was talking about, high noon, not being a great time to film, especially if you have people of different skin tones. It makes it very harsh. So what I was saying here, it's important now that we know the basics and what the difference between video and photography is that now you have a moving image. But because these devices are digital, when you zoom in, the movement is amplified, as opposed to a professional camera, which has moving parts and has much more parts in it to stabilize an image, to stabilize movement, and to do a lot more than you can with a phone device. It's important now when you're using a cell phone camera. What Fawaz had asked was, you know, how you steady yourself. So with holding your device, I had said that, you know, you don't just like hold it like this, you know, however people hold phones these days with their fingers like that. It's important that you keep it steady. You use both hands on the device, elbows tucked in to the body, so that you are steady. You bend your knees a little bit, just gently, not like on your knees completely. And you will learn to find a way that works best for you. For me, this really works best. But this is the way some people hold it. It kind of gets tiring when you do this, you know. It's something that you learn and you develop a muscle for, but it's something that you need to start learning as well. And you'll often maybe find yourself holding your phone like this, and you'll remember, and never ever film like this and then film like that and then film like this and then film like that. But you will discover that sometimes when you're filming, because of the way these things are just so easy and small, you'll want to get into little nooks and crannies because you're experimenting, and you will learn the things that you can do and that work or sometimes don't work so well. I can see the sun is coming really harsh from behind me. But sadly, I can't move right now. So you'll just have to bear with me. Hold your phone with both hands and keep your movements steady and easy. Don't swing because suddenly you see action over there. Whilst you're holding your camera here, focusing there, you can look with your eye, trying to keep it and both hands on the camera and keep it steady. Look with your eye where the action is and turn gently to the action. And if you're going to move your foot, because now your body is off balance, do it gently, nice and slow. You know, it's different from if you're filming a protest. And we understand if you're filming a protest, you'll move very quickly because everything is just fast action. But if you're doing something that you want to use on YouTube for broadcasting purposes, you're interviewing people, you're showing people's gardens, then the thing to do is to have nice, slow, calculated movements. Yeah. Getting back to our presentation. Yeah. Keep your hands steadier when you shoot. Hold your phone with both hands and tuck your elbows close to your body. If your footage is still too shaky, it might be time to build or buy a selfie stick or a mount. But one of the things that I said earlier is that, you know, I promote making a plan. You know, when you understand the basics of what this thing here is called, This is a tripod, yeah? And what you're doing with your legs and your arms is building a bit of a balanced tripod of some sort, yeah? So let's say you don't have a tripod. Now you understand the basics of why you need a tripod. You need a tripod to stabilize. But if you're thinking out the box, I need to block the light so that you can see me. Maybe let me just shift myself this way a little bit. The background is quite bright. But yeah, if you're thinking out the box, you'll start looking for all sorts of things. You take even something like this. It's got a wedge where you can put something into it. Yeah, like that. That's giving you some sort of steadiness. You know, there's a bit of a steady cam, you know. But remembering to use both hands, because when you need to change hands, if this hand has to come here, it's going to create a bit of a shake. It's still the basics, guys. You know, when you get into more sophisticated stuff, I mean, there are all kinds of things that you can use. Other day I was experimenting. Yeah, this is my glasses case. Yeah, sorry, no advertising. But then I discovered, yeah, as I was saying, so you improvise in terms of finding, you know, something that works to be able to stabilize your movements. And the way to stabilize your movements is making sure that your device itself is stable. And so there are different tricks and tools. Once you know the basics of why a tripod works the way it does, then you can start looking at different things, or why it's necessary to stabilize your shot, or when you're interviewing people, you can look at different ways to do that. Now, Fawaz had asked about zooming in. When you're recording video, if you want to zoom in with a smartphone without the image looking pixelated like this image that I deliberately put here, where it's blurry and fuzzy, the thing to do is then walk in gently, walk in slowly, take your time. If you start zooming in, because it's a digital zoom, it's not moving parts, and all cameras are created differently. It will stutter, it will break up, it will not be smooth, it will look jittery. And if we're looking to have something that is broadcast, that doesn't look good. It doesn't really work. You know, there are two things that you now have to start taking into consideration. It's not only now just about purpose, like I said about the photographs, it is now about the audience, your viewer. With video, you have to start considering who's going to be looking at this. What does it look like? What is it that I actually enjoy looking at? And what are the things that when I look at, I think, that's not really cool to look at, you know? Then, you know, you start thinking, okay, if I want to avoid these things that I don't think are cool to look at or are cool to see, what is it that I must do? And one of the things that's not really cool to see is that jittery digital zoom that happens with cell phones. If you want to get closer to a subject, you walk to it. And if you are interviewing people, it's very important that you be as close to the person that you are interviewing as possible. It can be tempting to use the zoom feature on your smartphone to get a closer shot. But since it isn't zooming optically, meaning that there aren't moving glass parts, you're just enlarging the picture digitally. It results in a picture that's rather pixelated. Now, because we're dealing with not only image, and we're not only dealing with light, we are dealing with sound. It's important that you get good sound. Most microphones on your phone are dynamic microphones, meaning that they record everything, and they can record everything from any distance. So if the people who are in the background there were talking and I was to just be quiet for 2 seconds, or even if I was to just be quiet now, you will hear the traffic in the background, because what happens is the microphone or the technology in the software, or the software in the device, the technology is such that it opens up to pick up the sound in the background. That's why when you are talking to somebody on a cell phone and there are people in the background talking, you sometimes struggle to hear the person that's talking, because the technology is trying to balance between this loud sound and that other sound that it's picking up in the background. And what it does is actually open up a little bit more, so then you pick up a lot more of the background noise. Yeah. So it's not really ideal to do interviews using a cell phone, using the built-in microphone that it comes with. So most people, you'll see they have microphones. Where's my bag? In my bag, I brought several things. And the cheapest, most affordable thing you can use to make sure that you get good quality sound is the headphones that come with your phone. Most phones come with these headphones. These headphones, you can probably get it for like 25 Rand. I saw it somewhere else for like 25 Rand. And I saw a really nice one that Takealot was advertising for like 139 Rand. I saw it somewhere, a really semi-professional one, better than just this, for like, I think, like I said, Takealot sells it for about 139, 140 Rand. I saw it somewhere advertised for 25 Rand. But the thing is, you take the cell phone, you plug your headphones in there. It's got to be the headphones that's got the microphone. You know, it's built so that the jack has three. The difference is, I don't know if you can see, it's got 3 slots on it. 1, 2, 3. So that's because you've got your left and your right audio to hear, and then the other part is the microphone that sends the sound into this. So when you're doing interviews with the cell phone, have the person that you're interviewing hold this like here. They can even hold it out of shot if your shot is set up like this. You know, you don't see it. It's right here. You will get a hell of a lot better sound than you do when you are holding your phone and trying to get that whole scene there, you know, and the person that you're interviewing. There are different ways to also start using your phone when you're interviewing people so that you can see what it is that the person is talking about. You can put them with that in the background, or you can maybe put them in such a way that they're kind of like on the corner, so that occasionally you can put them in the center and you can make those gentle movements to show the background and whatever it is that you're filming. But sound is very important. This is your best friend. And most of you young people and people out there know about things called aux cables, auxiliary cables. That's got a hole where you can plug this into. And then on the other end, it's got this that you can plug into your cell phone. So that now starts giving you a little bit more edge, because you've got the distance to be able to do this with a person talking. You will see the cable, but if you want to be like really clever and start being professional, you will start walking around with little gadgets and all kinds of tricks. You know, all sorts of little tricks, tape or whatever, where you are running the cable underneath, and maybe so that this doesn't dangle, you know, you put this somewhere. You start with that aux cable, which is probably about 10, 15 Rand or 25, but it's affordable. Take something that you have, talk to people, you know, ask, hey, do you have an aux cable that I can borrow for the day? I'll bring it back in the afternoon, you know? But tape, this is gaffer tape. This is the more professional one. It's got better adhesion and doesn't leave the glue behind on your clothes. This is a little bit more affordable. I was in some rural place a couple of weeks ago and ran out of gaffer tape and needed to get tape. Don't buy duct tape, but if you can't, try to find something that's less plasticky on the outside. This is the more professional one. It's like got real woven fiber in it. Don't use masking tape because it doesn't really hold well at all. And the most important thing is to avoid your microphone moving around. If your microphone is chafing, it's better to just have the person holding it. You know, people are forgiving. They'll understand that, oh yes, this is the microphone. You're getting good quality sound, yeah? Rather than trying to be tricky and clever and professional TV and hiding, and as the person is, you know, hiding the microphone, as the person is moving, it's chafing and it's going, watch out, watch out, watch out. That's really very bad, poor quality sound. I don't play around with technology much just because I'm so old school. But you know, I don't know. Oh yeah, I think I've got these. My kids use these. These are Bluetooth headphones. I don't know if it will work, but you can always try. I say experiment, try. You connect your Bluetooth headphones. The person doesn't have to put the headphones on, but then if you've got the Bluetooth thing, maybe it will also allow you to be able to do that interview with the person standing further back. You don't have this aux cable running in between. And then, of course, it's all about the distance of your Bluetooth and your phone, with all phones not being created equal. You'll see as you experiment how far you can go if the Bluetooth works. If you connect your Bluetooth to your phone and you record your video, but try it. You know, you learn. We learn as we go. I'm just rushing for time. It's 11 o'clock. I think we're beginning to make up time, and I really hope that this doesn't cut out again. But I won't give up until 12:30. Okay, so sound is very important. You know, sound is the one thing that is sometimes most forgotten. In the olden days, in the movies, you know, they would talk about the action and, you know, where the camera is going to be, where the actors are going to be, and they will block everything, they will work it out, and they will place the lights. And then suddenly, oh, where do we put the sound man? And sometimes the sound person would be put in a cupboard. Sometimes if it's a car, they would be put in the boot and that sort of thing. So often sound is one thing that people neglect and, you know, only think about last. And in video, if you have good quality pictures and you have good quality sound, you are a far away, you know? If your movements are steady, then you're beginning to really get somewhere and lift the bar and the quality and standard of what you're recording. So most of the time, recording audio directly from the camera's built-in microphone will work for the general landscape sights and sounds. Like if you're just shooting the background of the mountain and the cars over there, that's cool. But when doing interviews, you will need to have a microphone as close to the person that you are interviewing as possible. You can use the microphone on your headphones, like I've just shown you. If you don't have one, get a pair, borrow one. You know, you get all kinds now, like these that are take a lot. They have different connectors and for different types of phones. You can see the one on the extreme right there probably comes with a couple of cables. You can do different types of connections and connectivity. Because remember, I was showing you the microphone for your phone, which needs to send and receive sound. That one had 3 slots. If you look at this pin here on the right here, it has only 2 slots because it's only sending sound. Yeah. The other thing that's very important is lighting. If you're doing video and you can't see the person's eyes, you can see the difference. Now, with the image on the left, you can see the person's eyes. It looks a lot more appealing than the person on the right. But you know how when they do these things, they always like make the before and the after. The before always looks a lot more bland than the after. And with the image on the right without the reflector, you can see she's not smiling. The one with the reflector, she's smiling. So obviously when people, we respond to people's faces. If someone is smiling, we think that's a beautiful picture. If someone is not smiling, we think, that's not a nice person, or they might have had a bad day or whatever. But that's really to help us psychologically understand what works, what doesn't work, or to sell whatever it is that what we're trying to sell, to say that this works and that doesn't work. And what I'm selling to you here is how to work with lighting outdoors, where perhaps you need a little bit of a kick, a little bit more light on the person's face. Now, there are all sorts of gadgets that many of you have seen, ring lights, and all sorts of things that people put on their cell phones. And what I'm going to share with you is using what you have available around you. And even if you're taking photographs instead of video, you can still use these techniques. This thing here is called a poly board. It's poly for polystyrene, and it's a board. You can see it's thick there, so that you can hold it and it's not blown by the wind easily. And the one thing that I forgot to say about filmmaking is that it is, as opposed to photography, where photography can be done by one person, can be done individually. When it comes to video, it usually takes more than one person. Filmmaking is not an individual sport. It's not an individual endeavor. Filmmaking is a team effort. It takes more than one person to do anything and make a movie. And yes, you can do it by yourself. I mean, I've filmed and edited and directed and so on, but you'll always find that something kind of falls between the cracks. There's always something that, if you had one person to hold your polyboard and you hold the camera, you could have done that better. So instead of having artificial light, you can use something that is easily available to create a polyboard or reflector of some sort. I have a couple of things here that I brought from my house. This is an aluminium tray. Now, if I had the time to hold this a particular way, I could even put more light on my face. This is foil. You can create a reflector with this. Obviously, foil will give you more of a shine. This is just a cutting board, just to illustrate how all you need is just something hard in the back. So it could be a piece of wood, it could be anything, and you put foil on that, and you've got a bit of a reflector. As you can see, I probably trying to find a way to reflect the light. Yeah, I don't know if you can see a little bit of shine on my face, but you can use this and stand at a distance and use the sun to then start bouncing light on your subject. And what's nice about foil is that you've got the shiny glossy side, and there's the slightly dull side. What I've used in the past as well is I've used ordinary white paper, put it on a table below the person's chin as they're being interviewed, close to a window, the light is coming in through the window and bounce it a little bit over on the paper, and it's lighting the person's face up a little bit. If you're outdoors, you can, like I was showing you with the microphone, how you could just kind of like hold the microphone here, depending on the shot. You know, if you hold the microphone here, you could also have the person holding the piece of paper just down here, you know, just out of shot, and turning it in a particular way that the harsh light of the sun bounces here, reflects onto the face, and gives you a really nice soft lighting that balances the light. So I think we've covered most of those aspects. I lost track of time, so just bear with me. I'm just going to go back to the presentation. Let's see, so that we can just double check that I've covered all the points. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, so this is something, yeah, like I was saying, it's used even on big movie sets. You can make it as big as you want, you can make it as small as you want. You know, if you're doing a lot of filming, then you have to think about how you transport it, because you'll be moving around. So make it big enough or small enough to fit into your car, not too big to not be able to transport it. Something like that, what you see in this picture, you would need a bakkie to transport, you know? So in summary, with regards to filming and doing video, the most important thing is to start thinking about how you hold your phone and why you are doing that. I mean, if you're just shooting stuff because you're shooting it because you really don't care who you share it with and whether they will like it or not, you can do whatever you want because it works for you. But if you want it to be video and photographs that can be edited, that can be used differently, that you can zoom into, that you can crop, you can edit, then landscape is the way to go, because then you are guaranteed that more people will be willing to look at it before they even tell you that they like it or don't. At least they will look at it. If it's filmed in portrait, chances are, well, probably not. So that's an example of a dynamic microphone. I'm pretty sure you heard the child having fun in the background there, because of the nature of these dynamic microphones. So for now, stick to outdoors and use natural light as much as possible. Choose the time of day that you film because you will have the best light, or better light. And when it's overcast, know already what kind of images and quality photographs or video you will have, and be okay with that. Otherwise, wait for a different day where the lighting is better. And if you can avoid on a good sunlit day, avoid shooting in those periods between 11 and 2, 11 and 3. You know, don't use the digital zoom, move closer. Otherwise you'll have that jittery motion, which also then gets people to think, do I really want to look at this? Move slowly, you know, take your time. Otherwise, invest in a tripod or a selfie stick. You know, with technology and accessibility, the more people have access to something, the lower the prices become, and the less exclusive it is. So selfie sticks are probably not as exclusive and as expensive as when only Nicki Minaj had one. You know, sorry, I'm just showing my age there. And really, if you don't have something, look around you. You know, think out the box. You know, think, okay, why do people use this? And why do people do this? Oh, okay, so let me think. If I need to have something stable, I don't have a tripod, but how can I balance a couple of boxes and bricks such that I can leave this thing alone? It's not going to get blown by the wind and it can be steady. Yeah. I have a couple of sources that I use as resources, and this is one that I recommend very much. If you want to learn, there are lots of resources online, but witness.org is an organization that is committed to creating content for social justice and transformation, for empowerment and sharing information. So witness.org is one that you can go to, and they have resources, as you can see with that that address that I've given you there. Those resources are in different languages. They're in Arabic, Spanish. I saw Isxhosa Zulu the other day. So I think they're expanding on the different languages that you can also access their resources. They have an activist's guide to mobile video or using mobile video. And this is also from this this YouTube video is on sound recording, showing you how to use the microphone. It's just that I'm not going to try to connect onto YouTube. I had planned to show you some videos that give tips, but there's a lot of resources online. There's resources on conducting interviews, so tips on the do's and don'ts of conducting interviews. It's very important that when you interview people, you get their permission. You must get their consent. Yeah. And apart from getting consent, what are some of the do's and don'ts? Oh, yes. Most important. Very, 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 very important. Very paramount. When shooting video with your cell phone, first thing, switch your data off. Put your phone on airplane mode. The last thing you want is interviewing someone, something that you can't repeat, you can't recreate, and suddenly ping, ping, WhatsApp messages. Or ring, ring, yo, Thabo, what's up, buddy? Yeah, it throws the person that's being interviewed off. It just really, it just takes away from, the essence of the limited time that we have available. So that's really critical. How you hold your phone before you even think how you start holding it and filming. Switch off your data, put it on airplane mode. Very, 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 very basic. And it's okay. We're going to forget. We'll make mistakes. I mean, I just had my phone in my pocket and I see this beautiful thing and hey, I don't have time. I want to catch the bird and I start filming and then it rings. It's okay. We learn, Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. It's just part of life. I was going to have us do an exercise. I'm not sure if you guys are keen, but if you have any questions, let's start with questions first, and then we can talk about an exercise if you want to do an exercise. Any questions?
Yes, Thabo, just a question from my side. I just wanted to find out.
Fawaz, I think you're muted. Oh, sorry. No, you're not. I just have my speakers.
No problem. It's fine. Okay, just a question from my side. I just wanted to know from your perspective, when do you think is the best time to shoot a video or a film? Especially when you want to put it onto YouTube, See that you spoke about the sunlight and all that. So when do you think, when is the best time to film?
Well, like I said, it's morning, depending on when the sun rises and the direction it rises in, where you're going to film. For instance, if I want to film here at this garden, which is here at Oude Molen, I would know that if I want to be on this side, filming in the direction of the mountain, I will probably shoot in the morning because the sun is behind me. If I'm shooting in the direction of the mountain in the afternoon, the sun is coming from that side. Maybe that's the effect that I want because I want to catch the beautiful sunset. I would shoot a little bit later in the day. And remember, I said you can move your subject around. You can also move, because as your subject moves, you also have to move. So maybe I want to shoot my plants in golden light. I will also make sure that I get the sun coming from that side in the evening, but I'm gonna have long shadows because now I'm filming this way and the sun is coming from behind me, so my shadows are on my plants. But if I'm filming plants, I can be a little bit to the side, so I still get the golden light on the plants, but not my shadows in shot, you know? So you have to think about where you're filming and what, so you'll choose your time of day depending on where you're filming, where the sun rises, where it sets from, and how you're planning to position your subject in relation to the sun and your background. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions? Anything in the chat?
There's nothing in the chat, Thabo.
Okay. I must really thank you guys for sticking around, because after all these mishaps, techno mishaps we had, you know, it would have been easy for people to just give up. So before we get into the exercise, you know, I really want to encourage you to play around and don't be afraid to make mistakes, because it's only through making mistakes that you will, it's only through looking at your work that you can reflect on what it is that you want to improve on and choose what you want to make better, you know? Like I said, it's a creative process. And with gardening, you know, you try to plant this here and you realize, oh, this season, actually it didn't work. Oh, I didn't know it works better in winter, or grows better in winter or in a different season. Oh, I didn't know if I overwater my lettuce, it actually gets root rot and it dies. So I need to start managing, you know, I didn't know if I plant this next to that. But it's only through trial and error that you really get to realize what works and what doesn't work, what works for you, what doesn't work, what works for me doesn't necessarily work for other people. You know, I make movies, but I can't really make them as jazzed up and as gimmicky as some young people will, you know, think that really is cool. I tell stories differently. I tell stories that connect with the heart, as opposed to making films that just grab the eye appeal. And I think that's also something that we need to be very careful of with the technology, because it can get, you have so much access to the gimmicks. And if you don't know really the basics, you will just get caught up in the gimmicks that you lose the understanding of what it takes to make things work, and why certain things don't work. Yeah. So I'd like to ask you guys, everyone, sorry, I use this, you know, expression of guys very loosely, being older age, but I'd like to ask everyone if you would like to do maybe a bit of filming exercise, or if you want to show your photographs more. It is 11:28. Are you okay to start at 12? Okay, cool. All right, so we'll still, okay, we'll still go until 12. So so guys, sorry, there I go again. Hello everyone. Does anyone want to ask questions? What would you like to do? Would you like to do some filming?
Stepping out now.
I'm gonna try and see if I can find 1 or 2 videos that I was looking at yesterday, to maybe share. Okay, let's see, maybe if I can just talk a little bit more. Okay, here's a nice video. This guy is a bit quirky and wacky. It's about 6 minutes long. It's about how to make your poly board.
I don't know if we'll be able to see videos, but you can try share.
Okay. Yeah, video is a bit tricky. Also, I'm just thinking because see the thing is with sharing video on Zoom, it lags a little bit. So the trick with sharing video on Zoom is you have to let it play right through first, so that it kind of buffers and gets all the data on your machine, and then when you play it the second time, it stutters less. So let's not try to do that, because it will also start chowing people's data unnecessarily. But I will share.
Thabo, what you can do is you can share the link to the video, and I'll load it with the presentation and the recording of the Zoom.
Okay, I will find that video again. But what I want to share right now is just going through witness.org, because it is just one of those resources that's intended to be shared and shared freely. It's information that is open source and learning material. So are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I just I thought I could make it bigger. Let's see, does that work? Yeah, it's a little bit bigger. Oops, sorry. Let's move my cursor there. It's a little bit bigger.